Hello, everybody. My name is Michelle Jones, and I'm so excited to be here today for our newest Cooking with Friends episode. We love having our friends come and teach us how they cook some of these amazing high fiber foods. And today we have Trish Smith with us. Hi, Trish.
Hi.
And so I do want to tell you a few things about Trish because she's unique. I really like so many things about your story, Trish. Trish is a proud advocate of a high fiber lifestyle. She has personally lost 100 pounds by making healthier lifestyle choices. And because of that, she shares a passion as a certified lifestyle medicine educator. I think that's so neat. Trish loves encouraging and assisting others in achieving positive health improvements, including weight loss and life satisfaction. So, Trish, we are so excited to have you with us today. And I, feel a little special because I know what you're going to share with us. So we can't wait to see your food. I also want to introduce Amy Hannes. Amy usually handles our technical side of things. And so I think at this time she has a couple announcements as well.
Yes, hi, and welcome everybody. I think many of you have already found the chat. So if you have not found the chat, find that, say hello, tell us where you're joining us from. It looks like we have people from all over the country already, so that's fabulous. Just as a reminder, we are joining you via the internet and you're joining us via the internet, so things do happen. So if any of us pop off, give us a second, we'll pop back on. Thankfully, we're all joining from 3 different states, so hopefully you should not lose all of us at once. If you have issues with your connection, one of the things that we have found is that the Chrome browser works really good with the platform that we use. But you can always refresh your connection if you don't hear or if you can't see us. So that's always great to do. The other thing that Trish has provided us is her recipes that she's sharing with us today. So we do have a handout. We'll share what she's done sharing, kind of everything, and I cannot wait to, we've been talking about this before we got on live, and like I'm already salivating over talking about this.
Me too.
So thank you for being with us, Trish.
One other quick announcement that I would make is if you do have questions at all during Trish's workshop, please post them in the chat. We may interrupt her from time to time if it's really relevant to what's happening, or we may wait until the end of the workshop to handle some of the questions. So questions, make sure you put them in the chat. And I think at this time, Trish, we are ready for you to take over.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, guys. It is so fun to come here and to share with you some healthy, high fiber recipes that are absolutely staples in our home. I mean, without fail, we try to stick to the basics, because if you're looking for long-term success in a high fiber lifestyle, you have to find foods you enjoy, because if you enjoy it, you're more likely to take the effort to do it, and then you're going to feel satisfied, and it's going to help hold you over, and it's going to be so good for your health. So today, welcome to my kitchen. We are ready to be festive, and this recipe that I'm going to share with you today can be used for holidays. It can be used for every day, really. It's very versatile. So we are going to be making good for you waffles, okay? So I'm sure many of you probably are waffle fans, and after switching to a high fiber lifestyle or the full plate living lifestyle, thought, oh, well, those waffles don't really fit into my 75. So I'm going to show you an easy way to make high fiber waffles that you can keep in the fridge or the freezer. You can modify based off the seasons or based off of your tastes and be delicious. So what we're going to start with here is just our blender. Now, if you don't have a blender, that's okay. You can make these in a food processor, okay? So just so you know, that's because I get that question sometimes. Do I have to, what if I don't have a blender? A food processor will work. You might find that you have to blend it or process it a little bit longer than you would in a high-powered blender. But here's another great tip for you. As we're going, always try to start with your water in your blender or in your food processor first, because then that's going to help nothing getting stuck on the bottom, and it's going to blend up a little bit better, okay? Because I have been making these waffles for a long time, and I've been helping people make them for a long time, and those are just a few of the tips that I think are helpful. So we're going to start with our blender canister here, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to add our water here.
Sorry, could you say that again?
Sorry.
I'm having trouble hearing you.
Forgive my watch. It thinks I'm talking to it. I'm not talking to you, watch. So we're going to start with the water, 3.5 cups of water into our blender base. Okay. Then, believe it or not, this waffle recipe calls for 1 15-ounce can of chickpeas or garbanzo beans. Okay, there's a couple tips when working with chickpeas. For this recipe, I always go for the convenience factor of using a can of chickpeas. But here's something that's great if you didn't know. Anytime you're working with a canned product, draining and rinsing the beans takes a good 30% of the sodium out, okay? So if you're really watching that sodium intake, that's a great way. You can buy low sodium or no added salt beans, but I always drain and rinse them, okay? Drain and rinse the beans, and I'm gonna add them right to my blender. Now, sometimes people will ask, what if I want to make dry beans? That works as well. Again, a tip, since we're making a sweeter waffle, I would recommend draining whatever cooked chickpeas or garbanzos you have first, okay? So that we're gonna put off to the side. So we've got that in there. Next, you have a couple options here. You can use a couple different whole grains. You could use quinoa, buckwheat, or whole grain cornmeal, okay? You're gonna use the whole grain dry intact, and you're gonna add that in. Today I'm using whole grain cornmeal. We're gonna add that in. And then next, so far so good, right? I mean, it's pretty simple. Luckily, it's all one thing in the blender. Next, we're gonna add rolled oats, okay? If you're gluten-free, you could absolutely get gluten-free rolled oats. I like to use the rolled because of the fiber content. If you don't have rolled oats, you could opt for quick oats, but you're gonna lose a little bit of the fiber content by opting for the quick oats, okay? And unfortunately, steel cut oats don't work in this recipe, okay? So what we have found the best is old-fashioned or rolled oats, and that's gonna be 4 cups of this. Don't worry too much about the measurements. It's gonna be in that handout at the end. So 4 cups of our rolled oats here. And then next we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna add 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Now, again, if you're wanting to be, if you're being conscientious of your sodium intake and you're using a can of beans, you could skip the 1/2 teaspoon of salt if you needed to, okay? So we've got our salt. Next, we're gonna go ahead and add our vanilla extract, 1 tablespoon of that. And you know what I love when it comes to cooking? I love recipes that are simple and easy because I cook for a pretty big household. So I like to be able to whip up recipes that aren't too difficult, that aren't too many steps. And my favorite part is getting it all in one bowl or all in one blender. That always saves a lot of time and effort and cleanup. So next, I'm going to use 2 tablespoons of a liquid sweetener. I'm going to use agave, but you could opt for pure maple syrup, date syrup, or agave, or honey. Any of those liquid sweeteners will work, and they're equal amounts. So it's going to be 2 tablespoons. 2 tablespoons of that right into our blender. All right. And then what's really neat about this is our base recipe, basic whole grain, high fiber waffle. But what I like to always share with people is, you know, if you're out, you can get all of these fancy waffles. You could get banana, you could get carrot cake, you could get pumpkin. So with this recipe, it's very easy to add any of your favorite maybe seasonal flavors, okay? So what's really easy is you could add a ripe banana. A ripe banana is going to help turn it into a banana waffle. Or if you're feeling festive, I know we've moved into the other holiday, but I think there's probably a lot of you who are still pumpkin fans out there. You could add 1 cup of pumpkin puree to this base recipe. And then you could add some pumpkin pie spice or just a little bit of cinnamon, about a teaspoon of cinnamon, and you can easily turn the same recipe into pumpkin waffles. Okay, now that's just the beginning. You could do blueberries, you could do strawberries, you could actually blend in anything you wanted to your batter. Okay, so this is what's great about a lot of these basic recipes. You get the core intact, then make it however you like. Add in whatever things are going to jazz it up and suit your flavor. So we're going to go ahead. I'm going to plug in my waffle iron because I forgot to do that. So now what I'm using here is I'm using a classic waffle maker. This is Cuisinart. And what I like about the classic waffle makers as opposed to those Belgian waffle makers is that we're using whole foods to make these waffles. We're not using refined flours or anything like that, okay? So because of this, what's nice about the classic waffle iron is the grooves aren't too deep. When you're using some of those waffle irons that make a really, really thick waffle, you might find that this high fiber waffle gets a little too dense. So I'm a big fan of the classic waffle iron, but just to note, any waffle iron works. You can use any of them that you'd like. So that waffle iron's turned on. I have mine set to high, just between the 4 and the 5. Mine goes from a 1 to a 5. I like to set it right between the 4 and the 5 because, again, we're cooking whole grains up in here. So we're going to turn on our blender and blend this for a while. We really want to make sure we're getting everything combined well.
And so you're asking questions about food processors, so I was just going to, absolutely, you could use a food processor for this. What you're going to have to do, instead of, she has the stick that kind of helps move it around, so you'll have to stop, get a spatula, and take, get around the edges and then blend it again, and then probably move it around the edges again and blend it again. So it might, take you a little bit longer in doing that, but absolutely the food processor can work just the same. So that's a great way to do it.
Absolutely. I'm hopping in on there. But the question was, could you use a food processor as well as a blender? Yep, absolutely could. Just remember that tip of adding your water first. By adding your water first, none of those grains or beans are going to get stuck at the bottom and not get pureed. So, just like she said, that'll work just fine. So as you see, I'm using a high-powered Vitamix blender here, and I still took the time to blend my batter. I didn't time it exactly, but a good minute. Probably you want to make sure it's blended well because we want this to be a smooth, fluffy, beautiful waffle. So couple tips I'm going to share with you about the batter before we put it into our iron so it can preheat for a minute. This makes just about, how many cups is my canister? This makes just about, as I can read it here real well, 8 cups. This actually makes 8 cups of waffle batter, okay? So what's really cool is you can get a decent amount of waffles out of this one batch. But here's what I always do with waffles. If I'm gonna take the time to whip up a batch of waffles, I'm going to do as many as I have the time to do because these keep really well, okay? So say you wanted to whip up waffle batter the night before and pop out fresh waffles in the morning. You could totally do that. Blend your batter, put it in the fridge. This batter will last for about 2 days in the fridge. My only tip for that is, since it has so many oats in it, what do oats tend to do when you put them with liquid? They start to absorb. So the only thing you might find is if you pull that batter out in the morning or whenever you decide to cook your waffle, you may need to add about 2 tablespoons to 1/4 cup of water and give it a quick blend or a quick stir, depending on how you're storing it. What that'll do is it will help thin out your batter a little bit so that it's pourable. Okay, so that's a tip on the batter. The batter will keep for about 2 days in the fridge. But what I always like to do, and believe it or not, I have 4 of these bad boys. Okay, so when I make waffles, I usually make waffles. I bust out all 4 of my waffle irons and I just start to crank out waffles. Here's why. They keep beautifully. This is a recipe that you can make all of your waffles, let them cool. You then can put them in freezer safe bags, put them in the freezer, and you have got a high fiber, healthy, very inexpensive Eggo alternative or frozen waffle alternative. Okay, it's a great option, and that's how I like to do it, and it saves you time. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to add a quick little spritz of a cooking spray to my waffle iron because we don't want our waffle to stick. Okay, so I just literally do a quick little dab right in the middle, and that helps. So we're going to go ahead and take our batter and pour it right in the center of our waffle iron. Okay. Now, how big you make your waffles is up to you. And a lot of times, if you want perfectly symmetrical waffles, you can use a measuring spoon to measure about 1/2 cup to 3/4 cup. Makes a really cute waffle, cute size, I should say. So my waffle iron here just has a light indicator. So once it's ready to go, and I know I'm going to need to take it out, it pops it over to green. So right now it's on red. So that's the other thing when you're making a lot of waffles. You got to make sure you don't burn your waffles. I have burnt a handful of waffles in my day, but you know, it's okay. I just kind of keep an eye out for the little light to switch over. Some waffle irons will make a little noise. It just depends on whatever you're using. So while that's cooking up, we're going to talk a little bit about some toppings. Take it away.
Oh, excellent. I'm glad you are, but we got a question first. Can these be made into pancakes?
Great question. I always get that question, and I'm going to tell you, I have tried it. I have tried it lots of different times. The answer is yes. You can make them as pancakes. In my personal opinion, they're not as good because for some reason you know, when you have a pancake, it's fluffy and it's light and the batter's a little bit thinner. I have tried to thin out the batter and then cook it as pancakes, and it works. But I really think that the waffle turns out better because the inside stays fluffy, but then the outside's crunchy. It's something about the dual heat.
Irons.
Yeah. So you can do it, gang, but I think the waffles are better. I do.
You said you're going to talk about toppings next, and that was the next thing is, will we get suggestions for healthy, child acceptable toppings as well? And I know you have children, so it's even better. So
thank you. Yes, great questions. Okay, so I do have kids, and my kids love these waffles. Okay, sometimes this is a new thing for them. You know, kids, they'll kind of go through phases of things they like versus things they don't like. So what our big kick is right now is blueberries. We love everything blueberry. So what I have actually done to these is I have thrown about 1 cup of frozen blueberries into my batter, and then it makes the waffles look blue. They think it's great, and they just think it's the bomb, and then they're getting some extra fiber and some blueberries in there. But toppings, let's chat about toppings for a minute. So something else that I like to make, and it's another great way to get fun fruit in for kids or adults. I like to make a berry applesauce, okay? So as opposed to putting butter and syrup, which you could opt for that, again, that would be part of your 25%, but I like to try and keep it as health promoting as I can. So what we've got here is we're going to show you how to whip up berry applesauce. I have got unsweetened applesauce. Now, this is an important part because in applesauces, you want to be mindful. When you flip it over, typically the first ingredient is either sugar or high fructose corn syrup. So you want to try and opt for unsweetened applesauce that's just apples, okay? So that's what we have here, unsweetened applesauce. And I have a handy dandy little food processor here, and I'm going to go ahead and take some frozen fruit. I've got mango, blueberries, and strawberries. You could use any fruit that you like or that you prefer. The reason I'm trying to show you this is frozen is because you don't always have to opt for fresh. You may not always have fresh in season depending on where you live. So when in doubt, you can always go the frozen route. I'm going to pop this into my food processor. This is just a step that I like to do. You don't have to do this. And again, you could use fresh or frozen fruit, okay? It's up to you. You've got options there. But what I like to do is I like to make it not too chunky for my kids, okay? So I pop it in my food processor here, and I'm just gonna quickly pulse it. And by pulsing it, I'm breaking up so it's not big pieces. Again, you could make it as smooth or as chunky as you prefer. Just gonna pour this right in here. So I'm gonna take this blade out, it'll be easier. Pour our berries into our applesauce. And the other cool thing that this creates for you is it gives your applesauce a beautiful color. And now that's something else you wanna remember. When you're eating, do we use our eyes when we're eating at all? I do. I definitely do. If something is aesthetically pleasing, I'm more likely to opt for it. So by adding these nice antioxidant-rich berries to our applesauce, we're adding not only more fiber, more nutrients, but we're adding that color. And sometimes that color can be really appealing and attractive. So I'm just mixing in this frozen berries. Well, I shouldn't say just berries. I did throw some mango in there too, because it's a great way to try and get some plant diversity in. If there's a fruit that maybe you or your kids aren't a big fan of on its own, throw it in something like this, because there's probably phytonutrients in that fruit that you might not be getting somewhere else. So it's a great way to sneak some healthy stuff in there. So here we go. Now this is just one of many options. So my waffle iron just clicked to green. So I'm gonna hop over here and pull it out. Check that out. Got a beautiful, it is a little warm, so don't mind me as I play hot potato, but I want you to see it. Here's our lovely waffle, okay? And that didn't take too long at all. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna pop another one right into my waffle iron. Okay. All right. Get that cooking. And then we'll come back over here and talk a little bit more about waffle topping options. So another thing, so you've got the berry applesauce option. What I like to do is I go ahead and I put that berry applesauce right onto my hot waffle, okay? And what's really neat is that the fruit, the natural sweetness from the fruit is where you're getting your sweet waffle topping option. And it's just delicious. So this is one way that my kids really love to eat it. Another thing that I have done for them in the past that's helpful is I will take the waffle and I will cut it into kind of like, if you've ever seen French toast sticks, kids love French toast sticks. I think kids just like food that's shaped like a stick. So you could absolutely cut the waffle into sticks and then give them the applesauce and then they could dunk it, or pure maple syrup or whatever topping you would choose. So this is a super easy, healthy option, okay? Now, say you wanted to go another route. Here's another route of some toppings that could work. Growing up, I always loved to have these waffles with peanut butter and applesauce. I didn't start adding the berries in it until later on in life, but A tip on some peanut butters, if you're gonna opt for a nut butter, remember that's part of the 25%, but try and get a nut butter that is just nuts or just nuts and salt, okay? This is a really good example. When I turn it over, all that it has in this is dry roasted organic peanuts and sea salt, okay? So you wanna opt for full real food, not the added fats and things like that. Another option is you could use something like a PB2 powder or a peanut butter powder. What you want to be careful with in some peanut butter powders is they'll add sugar and they'll add other stuff to it. You want to try and find a peanut butter powder that is just peanuts or maybe peanuts and salt, okay? That's always, or maybe peanuts and sometimes they'll put an anti-caking agent in there, something like that. This could be used directly into the batter or as a topping option. And I want to show you one other option that you could take. I love, my favorite is when it's in season, fresh peaches and blackberries. I'm telling you, put those on top of your waffle. It is divine. It is bright, it's colorful, it's refreshing, it's sweet, it's awesome. But I'm going to quickly whip up for you a fresh fruit salad to show you another alternative to have as a breakfast option. So what we've got here is just some cut up watermelon. Then I'm going to go ahead and add in some green apples and some grapes. And then what we have here is some raspberries and blueberries. Okay. What I have found when it comes to kids, introduce them to lots of different fruits and vegetables, even if they don't eat it, okay? Put it on their plate, introduce it to them, and without fail, the best thing that has worked for me getting my 3-year-old twins to eat different fruits and vegetables has been they see me eat it. If they see me eat it, then they want it, okay? So it may seem silly, but by you actually eating different fruits and vegetables and introducing it to them seems to work great. Now, there are lots of other things you could opt to put on your waffles, but if we're sticking with the high fiber things, these are some awesome options. So as you can see here, we've got all of the colors of the green apple and then of the bright berries and of the watermelon. And then you could opt to put this on a side, or you could have it on top of your waffle. So I'm going to show you again right here. Dun, da, da, da. Got another waffle ready to go. Okay. Now, what I like to do is for storage purposes, okay, because I want you guys to actually make these and store them so that you have these on the go. I like to use a cooling rack and I'll stack the waffles up and I'll let them cool before I put them away. Okay. All right. So letting your waffles cool is important because these don't have any preservatives in them. So when you store them, you want to make sure you don't leave them out because they will start to mold. What I have found the most successful way to store them is in the freezer, okay? But by letting them cool completely, when you stack them and put them in the freezer, they don't stick together. Because if you have to put them away really quickly, try using a piece of wax paper or parchment paper, because otherwise, if you put them in the freezer warm, they'll stick together as they start to cool, and then you'll end up breaking your waffle trying to get it out of the freezer, okay? So by letting it cool on a rack like this, that's a great option. Now, last but not least, and I know this may sound outlandish, but I'm going to tell you, you can also use this waffle batter and you can turn it into a savory waffle. Okay. Now, there may be some of you who aren't big on sweets or the sweeter food for breakfast or whatever time of day you want to eat these waffles. You could eat these waffles 3 times a day. But what's really neat is you can take this waffle recipe and you can skip the vanilla and the liquid sweetener, okay? You could skip those 2 things, substitute it with either onion, garlic, and a fresh herb. and you can turn this into a savory waffle, or you can treat it like a flatbread. Okay, so what I recommend is if you're gonna make it into a savory waffle, use about 2 tablespoons of fresh herbs. That's gonna take the place of your sweetener. And then use 1 tablespoon of either pureed onion or like minced onion or minced garlic. You put that into your batter, you cook it up in the waffle iron, and it's amazing. It comes out savory. And what you can do with that is you can pop it in the toaster as it is if you're reheating it. Once it's fresh and crunchy. I'm going to show you guys this waffle. Look at that. See how it's nice and fluffy inside? Okay. Fluffy inside and crispy on the outside. It's so cool. And these reheat beautifully. My favorite way to reheat them is in the toaster. Okay, so I'm gonna show you. This works just the same if you go the savory route. All right, so remember, just substitute the vanilla and the liquid sweetener for some type of a herb and either a garlic and an onion, and you cook them up. You've got a savory waffle. Now, again, how do we turn that savory waffle into a high fiber plate or a full plate? Here's how. There is a wonderful breakfast skillet recipe that's got vegetables and beans. You could use that as a topping alternative for the savory waffle. Or you could take some egg whites or a tofu scramble. You could turn it into like a fancy, almost like a crepe. So if anybody's ever had like a savory crepe, it's the same concept. You could do some spinach, you could do some tomatoes, and you could just make it this beautiful savory waffle in addition to a sweet version. Okay. So that's what we have on our waffles, guys. I hope this has been encouraging for you so that you don't have to be afraid of making waffles, savory or sweet.
Those are some great suggestions. I love the savory idea. I actually want to try it.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to let everybody know that the handout with the recipe is up. So you can click on handouts next to chat and go ahead and download it. See, lots of people are doing so already, which is great.
I also put in the breakfast hash recipe. That I remember when Michelle and I made that recipe, it has become a favorite at our house, and you can modify it for anything. So like if you, I think it has kidney beans in it, but sometimes I'll use cannellini beans, sometimes I'll use navy beans, sometimes I'll use black beans. So use kind of what you have on hand. I mean, I love that recipes really are guides. You can adjust them to fit what you have on hand and or what you like best. So.
Yeah, that would be a great one to put on top of this savory waffle. I do want to go through 2 of the questions that have already been asked. And then if anybody else has questions at this time for Trish, please put them up. The first one has to do with the variations. So when we're doing the variation to the batter, with additional ingredients, for example, strawberries, pumpkin, or banana, do you have to adjust the water content of the batter?
That is an awesome question. The rule of thumb is if you're only adding approximately 1 cup, no. So that's kind of my rule of thumb. 1 medium-sized banana, or if you're using a puree, 1 cup of a pumpkin puree, or the equivalent 1 cup of a cooked sweet potato works awesome as well, and it kind of turns it into a sweet potato waffle. As long as you're sticking to about 1 cup of an additive, you're good. I've never dabbled outside of that. So if you're wanting to like do even more, then you may need to adjust the water. But by adding those, there's enough natural water or liquid in them that it still blends up beautifully and cooks up good.
That is so true, because we're dealing with ingredients that are whole and they're high in fiber and water both. So you're right.
Mm-hmm.
Great tip. All right, and this question, I haven't looked at the handout myself, but do we have a nutritional value on the waffles?
I could get that to Amy. Yes, I could get that to you guys to share. Yes.
Excellent. That is
We
great.
will be sharing the recording in the member email, so and the handout will be there as well, and I'll be sure to put that information in the member email on Sunday, so y'all can expect to see that there as well. So yeah.
I would mention one other thing about the sweetener of choice, the liquid sweetener, and that is for some people, agave may not work. and it might be better to use, like you mentioned, maple syrup or honey. This might be true for people with diabetes. And so just kind of pay attention to how your blood sugars do. If you're worried about it, then switch your sweeteners and try something else.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Trish, this was wonderful. I think there's not a lot of questions because you covered everything so well.
Aw, that's great. I'm glad.
It's really funny. I'm actually considering going and making these for lunch now.
Let me know how it goes. Let me know.
For sure, for sure.
Well, and I love that this recipe, I mean, just like, you have twins, it's just me and my husband now, but it's great to have those easy, quick things. So whether you do live alone or there's just a few of you or there's a lot of you, it really does allow you to prep and kind of cook ahead of time so that these are easy for anyone to use and to have. To me, it's always, if I have things in the freezer, if I have things easily available, I'm going to make healthier options for those meals.
Definitely. And the fact that you can keep them in the freezer for a long period of time, that's really, really nice. So Trish, can you share your website for us?
Absolutely. My website is www.plant, P-L-A-N-T, strong, the number 4, numeral 4, life, L-I-F-E, Inc., I-N-C.com.
And it's on the top of the handout too.
Yeah. So there's lots of other recipes on there they're all high fiber, and hopefully if you get a chance to check those out and add some into your repertoire, that'd be awesome.
Yes, we definitely want to encourage people to try more.
Yes.
More.
The other thing too is that Trish, this is the second time you've come and joined us for this. So if you missed Trish's first Cooking with Friends, those are in the membership section under all the workshop recordings, and you can find her there. And she does another fantastic job in showing some high fiber recipes for us.
That was super fun. I've loved coming to hang out with you guys. I love sharing with you different recipes from our home to yours. And like Amy shared, let us know how it goes. Let us know if you try more. And I would love to come back and do this again sometime.
Excellent.
Thank you so much for being with us for a second time. We absolutely love it. And I think that our members have loved having you here as well. Again, if you missed Trish's other Cooking with Friends workshop, it is in your membership, and I guarantee that you will love the recipes. We've already eaten quite a few, actually every single one of them at home, and they're so good.
Awesome.
So I hope that, Trish, you have a wonderful rest of your week. And thank you again for joining us. Everybody else, thank you for being here with us today. Have a lovely rest of your week as well.
Bye. Take care.
Bye.